Next up on the pod, one of the very best college football head coaches in America. I won't go through his whole resume, but for those of you listening that are not aware, high school record of 195-41 with 3 state championships, high school Hall of Fame coach, junior college 30-4, 2 national championships, college at Ferris State 101-16, 2 national championship appearances, including last week's Division II national, and a total coaching record combined 326-61. Just phenomenal. Let's bring in Corunna's own Tony Annese. And Tony, congratulations again. My first question is not going to be the generic, how does it feel? But when all the celebrating was over and you finally got back to the room, what were your last thoughts when you finally got a chance to put your head down on the pillow?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess thought was I got to set my alarm because I got to get up in a half an hour because it's already morning.
Yeah.
I went to bed at a little after 6, and I had to get up to make sure all the players got up to catch the charter flight. So, yeah, it was a long night. I guess the beauty of college, being with college-age men, is you can, like, celebrate, like, with them a little bit.
Yep.
And so we did a lot of celebrating. We had a big ballroom, and we had a lot of our supporters and former football players and current football players, and it was just quite a party. And the people in the hotel were trying to kick us out at 2, and they didn't succeed until about 4:30, and then we went right into the lobby area and stood and visited for another hour and a half or so. So it was a great night. It was just fun to see how happy people were, and so for Ferris State and for all of our supporters, it's great to see how thrilled they were that we finally won the national championship.
So when's the moment when you think it kind of sets in? I mean, it was a little bit anticlimactic in the fact that it was a blowout. But I'll go to this moment in particular because I've always wondered this. You got a Gatorade bath. What's it like when you get Gatorade dumped on you after, a 10-year journey and you finally get to that moment where you turn, you see the video where you see them coming right before they dump it on you? Are you pissed when that happens and you're ice cold now? Are you excited? Are you expecting it in those last few minutes? What's it like when you finally get the Gatorade dumped on you?
I actually was completely prepared for it. I tried to act as though I didn't even feel it.
Right.
I don't know if that's how it looked on film, but I had so many clothes on, and I'm like, I'm just gonna play this off like I didn't even know they
Right.
did it. But one of the guys took my headphones off before the Gatorade bath was poured on me, and so that made me turn and see it. But it's awesome, I'm not one to really be very expressive in those situations, but it was just extraordinarily, just a great feeling. The whole thing, once we knew we kind of had the game in hand, which for me, that probably was when we finally, got to 58. So we were at 58-17 before I kind of thought, oh, yeah, we've got this. But, it's fun to win that way, knowing that you kind of have the game. It's easier to celebrate that way,
Right.
and so I think our guys really had a lot of fun on it.
It is. I just got a quick follow-up on that. It was actually in my notes. I was going to ask about the Gatorade bath. Your preference. I mean, both are good because you win the game, but Gatorade bath or shoulder ride, and you got both of them.
I don't know if I got a shoulder ride. They like to throw me in the air, like you big offensive linemen think like I'm a little they can vault me or something. But yeah, that was fun too. It's cool when they're when they're so happy that they try to bully me, about tackled me right as I got out. I was about ready to do the interview with the ESPN reporter, and he came up along with some of the other guys who former players, and they were just knocking me around, and I'm like, gosh, I'm too old to trash them now. But yeah, it was pretty incredible.
Coach Jared mentioned a few minutes ago about the journey. You've been at Ferris State for about 10 years. I wanted to ask you about building a program. We're seeing around the football world, whether it's college football, even in the NFL, it seems like a lot of programs, a lot of teams are giving head coaches, it's almost like a 2 or 3 year window. They give them 2 or 3 years, and if they don't feel that things are turning around, they give them the hook and they move on to somebody else. Can you talk about, like, in your opinion, what it takes to truly build build a program? Because when you came into Ferris, they weren't the bottom of the GLIAC, but they were a solid program. But you definitely had to bring some new life into Ferris State. And 10 years in, and you've got a national title. Can you just talk about kind of what it takes to really get your culture, your recruiting, and everything in to where you have it right now?
Yeah, well, we were, I felt like we were, we in the first year we were 7-4. It was a good first year. It's the first time we beat Grand Valley since 1999. So we had things that happened that were kind of pushing us forward, and then the next season, our first game was actually at North Dakota State, who was the FCS national champ the year before, and consistently the FCS national champ virtually every year. But I went there thinking, hey, I want my guys to experience what a championship program has been. And so we went there, and then we lost, obviously, to them. But we ended up being 8-2 after that game. And then, we took off. So on October 19th, 2013, since that date, we've only lost 3 regular season games. Wow. So it's pretty crazy to think about. But, yeah, we've only lost 3 regular season games in, I guess, 8 years. And so 14 was an undefeated season, regular season, and a GLIAC championship. 15 was an undefeated regular season and a GLIAC championship. But then, it's not easy to navigate the playoffs, and you really need to, I think, have a good feel as to how to navigate it. And so we finally, in 16, made the semis, and we lost the eventual national champs, Northwest Missouri State. But, we really had a great playoff run, and since then we've really done well in the playoffs. Obviously, getting there in 18 and losing in the finals, and then now in 2021 winning the whole thing.
One of the big things you did when you went to Ferris, or very shortly after you went to Ferris, was your entire high school coaching career, you would run, inside veer almost entirely. You even made a few modifications yourself, changing it to pistol veer. What made you finally change it when you got to Ferris? Why did you feel you needed to make that change to what more of like a spread type offense?
We still run some of that stuff,
right.
But we've always been a system that's built around our personnel, and so we actually put in some different installs for Jared. That was completely different than what we have done in the past. So we try to be a flexible system. My offensive coordinator is my son Steve, and he's a football genius. He's just so brilliant when it comes to being creative and coming up with stuff. And a lot of it is just us trying to do what's best for the personnel that we have, or the best way to attack an opponent. And so the first play of the game actually was a play we'd never ran specifically that way ever in my whole career, and Jared obviously broke it for a touchdown. But philosophically, that's the way we try to be. We're trying to be innovative and different and pressure the defense. And we ended D2 football with the number 1 scoring offense in the nation and the number 1 total offensive team in the nation.
Wow.
Obviously, we're very productive, and I was very pleased by the way we operated. But it all comes down to the offensive line. Our offensive line is always superior, and Coach Sam Parker's the guy that really gets a lot of that credit.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I mean, your offensive and defensive lines were just completely stellar, and really, you dominated in all 4 areas of the game: offense, defense, special teams, and coaching. But I was going to go back to Steve for a minute. He probably ought to get a raise and a Christmas bonus just for the fact that he brought the email to your attention, because from what I understand, Jared Bernhardt, he played a little lacrosse. Is that true? I say that sarcastically, but wow, what a find, huh?
Yeah, he's a little bit of an ass. I don't know what Jared was thinking just emailing Steve. Must have went through and checked and just said, well, I'll just send this to offensive coordinators. Because I certainly would have found it if it was in my email.
Right.
It was never in my email, but it was in a lot of people's emails. It wasn't just Ferris State.
Right.
Actually, Jared said after the game, he said to me, he says, I sent an email to Val Dostin and never answered it. And so he sent it around, and I think what he did was trying to determine, who were some of the top programs in the nation, and then in D2, and that's where he sent him. But, truthfully, I'm just shocked that he was at the University of Maryland, and the University of Maryland didn't just say, hey, come play for us,
right.
because, he's just that dynamic of an athlete. I mean, he's just extraordinarily gifted.
Coach, we all know that anyone that listens to our podcast, we talk about Corunna a lot, and we're proud alums. We know that you're obviously a proud alum of Corunna, too. Ted played for your dad, Nick and Annese. Jared and I played on the field that's named after your dad, Nick and Annese Field. Can you just talk about what you still take, things that you take from him that you learned watching him coach or learned from him, or other mentors that even at this point in your career with all the success that Ted laid out and we all know that you've had, that you still take from all those mentors that you've had through the years?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So on the day of the game, Saturday at 11 a.m., right before lunch, I basically, we had a team meeting, and I picked like the 18 guys that were there the last time, and I basically asked them to tell me what their why was. I mean, tell the group what their why was. So what I did is I had them walk up, sign a football, and then express to the team what their why was, what was their purpose. And I started, and my first thing I said was my why was my dad. And, I got emotional actually in front of the whole team just talking about the impact that he had on me. And I expressed to them that, I remember, going to Kmart back in the day, and I was a little kid, and people would come up to my dad and say, hey, Coach, how you doing? Thank you for everything. You made such a big difference in my life. And so that was a motivational factor for me my whole career. There hasn't been a game that I've coached where I didn't, think about my dad before the game started. I remember, just how much of a positive impact he had on people there in Corunna. And so that's been my motivating force. That's been my why, my whole career. And, I get emotional when people even say, through text message or emails, which I've gotten a million of them, but, some of the people from Corunna or from the area, like Mark Thomas, who's a good friend of mine who's from Owasso, they'll text me and say, hey, your dad would be so proud, and da-da-da-da. And, yeah, it makes me emotional even thinking about it, because he's been my why my whole career. And, my whole career is to just try to, serve young people the way he served young people. So, yeah, he's definitely been the force and inspiration for me to just keep on moving forward and trying to make the best of this profession.
Well, as Matt said, Tony, I mean, I had the fortune of playing for him. In fact, you probably never heard this story. I didn't play at all. I was on the team as a freshman, never played, and never got off the bench. I was a backup quarterback, never got in. And between going into my sophomore year, I was actually going to run cross country for Jim Duffield. And I'll never forget it. Your old man called up my dad and says, he's not running cross country, he's playing football. And he sent me to practice with the varsity as a sophomore. Keep in mind, I hadn't played all freshman year, but that workout in training, playing against the juniors and seniors gave me confidence to go, when they sent me back down to JV, kind of launched my high school career. So I owe him a lot for that. And he was one of a kind, man. And I'll tell you what, I mean, you're a chip off the old block, the way you walk the sidelines, the way you coach. And I just want to ask this question, Tony. It's from one of our friends from our generation, George Ackerman. He was the quarterback of the 76 team. He sent me a question to ask. He just said, before your dad, Nick, had his health issues, did he ever say anything to your mom, Ann, or anything to you kids about possibly, moving forward with a college career?
No, I mean, I know, like, at a point in time, probably, when I was little, he talked about going to Michigan State and working as an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, like, it's weird to say now, but, like, as an assistant coach at Michigan State back in the day, you probably weren't making as much money
right.
as you were making at Corunna. Just assistant coaches just weren't making money like that back in those times. But I know, he had a lot of mouths to feed in our house, and I know at one point in time that was a consideration, but that he just couldn't do it because of the situation where he had to provide for a family. And he's pretty content. It's just a special place, special time. He coached much different than how I coach now, because if I coached the way he coached, I'd probably get fired, and every other coach in America would get fired. Not to say what he did was always wrong, because he was a great coach, but just the pure militaristic style of coaching now is so much different. But he was a tough guy, but he was also a fun guy. I catch myself sometimes telling people stories of just how we grew up, and
oh man,
people just shake their head. They're like, seriously,
your poor mom.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. So, but he was, he just loved practical jokes. He just loved to make people laugh, and so it was always something at my house for sure.
Well, he was classic. I got one follow up on that, since we were talking about offensive job or assistant jobs at Michigan State. You've gone really the John Beeline route as a head coach pretty much your entire career, other than when you very first started out at high school. But has the thought ever crossed your mind now with big-time offensive coordinator positions, paying up over $1 million? I mean, has that ever crossed your mind? Or are you just going to ride it out as a head coach wherever it leads you, whether it's at Ferris or down the road somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, things obviously cross your mind because, the money is so significant now. It's almost sick. But, I also love what I'm doing now. And truthfully, I was happy at Montrose, I mean, I thought that was the greatest gig ever. So, I've always been pretty content with being where your feet are, I guess. And people ask me that all the time. Hey, this should propel you into a bigger job, or, what's people thinking? But, I also have been told this. I don't know if it's true, but my assistants tell me this, that I couldn't be an assistant coach. I'm like, what do you mean? I could be like an offensive coordinator or even a quarterback coach. And they're like, no, you need to be in charge. I mean, that's just your personality. But my daughter just rolled her eyes at me, so that means she must be assistant. But it's something that I guess, truthfully, it'd have to be with the right person, somebody that I really trust, because I still own my life, and meaning I control my own hours and do it the way I want to do it. And I guess people think that maybe if I wasn't doing it the way I wanted to do it, then I probably wouldn't be happy about that. So
I could see that.
I guess that might be the possibility of what they're talking about.
You mentioned Montrose. For a lot of listeners who maybe don't know, I feel like most people do, but you had a very successful high school career. Ted laid it out at the very start of the podcast. We actually saw you at the Caledonia versus Rockford game earlier this fall. Do you still catch a lot of high school football games on Friday nights, whether it's due to recruiting or whatnot? And is there maybe a favorite environment that you've seen? You've been all over the state. You've coached all over the state. Is there a certain place or a certain game that you remember that really sticks out to you for the environment and maybe what actually transpired on the field?
Well, to answer the first question, I try to go to a game every week. I love going to high school games, though. So even if I didn't have a recruit, I'd try to get out and see a game every Friday. Mm-hmm. The best environments, I mean, you got to say Muskegon High School at Hackley Stadium when that place is rolling. Yeah. I mean, that's a good environment as you're going to find. But definitely the Caledonia Rockford game was fun because it was packed. And I remember in 2008 when I was the head coach of Muskegon, we went to Rockford and played them. And I think there were like 14,000 people there. Like the whole place was packed. Even the hills were packed. And so those were fun times. Looking back at it, we went to Lowell in 2006, and they opened the gates at 11 a.m. and it was packed at 11:05. Wow. Like people were just sprinting to their seats. So yeah, those are all just great memories, fond memories. There's some great environments in Michigan for sure. But I say Muskegon with that stadium sitting right on top of the team. I mean, there's no track and there's nothing between that stadium and the field. So that's a great spot.
Yeah, we've talked about that place and a few other places. We definitely are high school football junkies, just like you are. But Coach, I wanted to ask you about when you kind of sensed that, or when a head coach does kind of sense that your team has fully bought in for the season. We've talked a number of times about the Michigan team this year and how we felt like it was different because you could almost see on the field and in press conferences and stuff like that the players finally bought in to Jim Harbaugh's system, and we're seeing the results on the field. Can you talk about maybe with this team or even past teams when you kind of get a sense that not just talent, but the team has fully bought in and you're going to have some success on the field?
Yeah, that's a good observation. We obviously we're undefeated in the regular season. We were gritty the whole season in regards to winning the GLIAC and going undefeated. We're the only undefeated team in all of Division II. So I was proud of that. But the biggest sign of how gritty your guys are or how bought in they are is when it gets tough in November and December. And people don't realize that. We're not rolling into any indoor facility, nor would I want to go into an indoor facility when we're playing an outdoor game. So, the regular season, I think, ended November 13th. So we had to practice the next week. Then we had to practice through Thanksgiving week, and then we played Thanksgiving weekend, and then we played the first week in December, the second week in December. And so I finally, as it was going on, I told the kids, I said, you guys are just different. I said, this team's different. And they're like, what do you mean we're different? I'm like, we're different, man. We're tougher. We can't be stopped. And nothing, like one of those days, it was 7 degrees, as we went out to the practice field, 7 degrees. And they just went out there and they worked. And I've got 25 kids from Florida,
right,
on my team. And so there's a lot of reasons why, mentally somebody might just say, man, this stinks. And even the scout team, like the guys that were, the true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, that were just, coming to practice every day and enduring the challenges, they had great attitudes. They gave us great looks. And so, yeah, you can tell the difference. Truthfully, I got two of my former assistants at Michigan, and they told me that probably through maybe week 4. They're like, yeah, this team's a lot different than the teams of the past. And so coaches can feel it, they can tell, and it's just a mentality. It really is. Get the right mentality in a sport. That's the force that's going to carry you into winning, national championships.
Well, you pretty much had a feel for this team being very good, obviously. You were there in 2018 in the championship game. How big was the fact that you knew what to expect on logistics, etc.? And it just appeared from some of the social media posts I saw, Tony, that you were pretty relaxed and confident going into that championship game. Is that fair to say?
No, that's absolutely correct. I just think the comfortability of being there before. And, we lost 49-47 in the 18 game.
Incredible game.
And then 19 up to West Florida, and they ended up winning the national championship. So truthfully, in 16 and 18 and 19, we had lost to the eventual national champion. So we knew, we were close, really close. But then COVID hit, and, I tell people this, but COVID could have taken you on. Can let people close the gap on you, catch up to you, or 2, we can open the gap. We can make it even bigger, and so our guys were like really locked in through even COVID and all the things we did, even though it was challenging.
I think a lot of people forget that Division II, you guys did not play a season last year. What was it like? I mean, you talked about how you guys stayed like kind of on top of it and kept the guys motivated, but at some point during that entire year without playing, were you ever thinking like, man, this just really, really, really sucks? And what was it? Do you think that's partially what made you guys so much better this year? Is that the guys in the locker room or the kind of kept their heads on straight the entire year off that you guys had heading into this season?
Yeah, we didn't we didn't cry about not playing. Truthfully,
Right.
in fact, when the NCAA said there weren't going to be, I mean, we could have played, but the NCAA said there was no playoff system, and our guy said, "Coach, we're not playing." And so I said, "No, I agree. We're not playing."
Right.
So we weren't going to just play games that just to play games just for the fun of it. So our guys knew, we were going to be on a mission, and we basically treated it like a mission. We worked every day. COVID did not slow us down. COVID did not discourage us. We just worked every day to try to be our best.
We'll keep you just a hair longer here, Tony. I know you got to go, but when I say you got to go, you're on vacation in Florida. I wish I was down there with you. You're down there with the family. Just recap just a little bit, a little love here, I guess, on what your wife, Chris, and your mom, Ann, and the entire Annese family have meant to your career.
Oh, goodness. So I'll start with my mom because she's sitting there right there in 642 Crestview Drive. Watches every game. Her health wasn't such that she felt like she could go to our games, but she never missed a game. Watched it, and obviously thrilled for us to win a national championship. And then, my son Steve coaches for me, and then my nephew Tony, Phil's son, coaches for me. So, and he's kind of the unsung hero. People don't really know that he's really a big part of us, but him and Ryan Hodges from Montrose, I coached him back in '94. They really did a great job kind of orchestrating the defense. But Tony's really just been an incredible blessing for us. And then my wife, Christine, is probably the best coach's wife on earth. I mean, I've said that time and time again. She's just so supportive. She's had her career the whole time, but yet she's just the consummate coach's wife. And then my kids, the rest of my children are just so engaged. My son Nick is my second child, a boy, and he goes to every game. And then my daughter Allie is like that little blonde on Remember the Titans.
A little feisty one, huh?
Yeah, she's just that wild, supportive, tough,
Right.
loves football kind of person. And then my youngest is Anthony, and he lives and dies it as well. So it's a pretty cool thing. It's really a family deal. And of course, because Tony's coaching, then my brother Phil's at the games, which is cool. Mm-hmm. My brother Mike is engaged. He calls me probably once a day to tell me his advice about everything. And Valdosta, he sent me this text that says something like, "Take care of the ball, don't make big mistakes. You're going to be national champs." And he sent that to me like 12 times. I said, "What are you talking about?" And then Steve is really engaged as well, but he's pretty. I think Steve's afraid he's going to jinx me if he comes to a game. He comes here and there. And ironically, when we played Grand Valley the first time, Steve's son got married, so none of them could be at the game. All of them went to the wedding, obviously. But yeah, Steve loves it. So they're all evaluating the film behind the scenes and giving me their opinions. And they love to give me their opinions.
Oh,
so,
go figure. Well,
I'm sure they're all proud.
Absolutely, and we're the same generation, obviously, growing up in Corunna. So it's cool to know your family, the Fatels and the Anneses. We had some things in common, and one thing we did have in common, we loved Corunna High School and playing sports at Corunna. I think all four of us can say that here on the podcast. We like to promote the fact that we're Corunna Cavaliers, and we have a lot of Cavalier listeners out there as well. So I think they're going to get a big kick out of listening to this interview, Tony. We really, really appreciate the time. Much love to you and the family. Have a fantastic holiday season, and hey there, wait a minute, put a little dog in it. Yeah, I forgot. I want to mention my best supporters, my sister Steph. And absolutely.
You went to school with her, so she probably didn't even care about football back in the day, but
Oh no,
she's
she hung in there. She was pretty good.
It was driving me nuts. I got to go to the games. I got to go to the games. She spends a lot of time taking care of my mom, so hard for her to get to the games. But she's the biggest supporter now, Steph.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's to you and your family, Tony. Thanks again for taking out this chunk of time to join us. Go back to ice cream, the sun, everything else you're doing down here in Florida. Well-deserved national championship, man. We're all proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yep. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Coach.
Well, I don't know, guys, but how cool was that to have Tony on coming after a national championship? I don't know if he was superstitious or not after the last time we talked to, I think we talked to Ryan Brady before a national championship game, but I tried to get him on before the national championship, and he said, why don't we do it after? And I think that was a good move.
No, I think so, 100%. I mean, who knows how busy he was heading into that game.
Right.
But he's enjoying it. And it was funny as we were talking to him before the pod, and he said he's rewatching the championship game. And I just think I'll tell you what, if I won the national championship, I'd probably watch the game a solid 20 times afterwards. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought that was funny too, and we all kind of chuckled about it. And you're sitting back just enjoying it. You're about to win the national title by 40 points or whatever. But I do sometimes wonder about that. Like, whatever level of head coach you are, especially NFL or as big as Tony Annese is, do you ever just flip on the replay of the game and sit there and watch it on ESPNU or whatever channel it's on, and you're watching film all the time otherwise.
Right.
Like, can you ever just sit back and enjoy the game? So that was funny to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, like I said in the setup for him, I mean, he's one of the best college coaches in America,
Right.
Regardless of the class, right? And when I asked the one question about possible thoughts of an assistant coach, the thought had come into my mind, obviously, since we always talk about Michigan, and Josh Gaddis is getting a lot of publicity. He might go on somewhere else or have that opportunity in the near future, whether it's next year or not. How ideal would it be for Tony Annese to go run the Wolverines offense, huh?
Oh,
I do wonder kind of what he said when you asked him about some of the feedback he's gotten that, some of his peers don't think that he would be able to handle being an assistant.
And I could see that.
I do wonder if you've been a head coach, and just the fact you know him way better than I do, just the type of person that he is, coming from his dad and everything like that, and then being a head coach for as long as he has, as successful as he's been as a head coach, it would probably be kind of just like almost weird to all of a sudden go and be a coordinator. It would be really strange, I feel like.
Oh, I think it'd be tough, but a million reasons could maybe convince you to do it for a couple years, too.
Right. No, I mean, we're all rooting for it, but it's funny how he said it. I mean, he does probably get asked about that every day. It does seem like, and and he's always a good sport about it. And a lot of people, I feel like, whenever they get asked something like that, they give you a snarky answer or something like that. But here's the thing: is winning national championships. And what did he say? He's lost 3 regular season games in I don't even remember 8 years.
Amazing.
That's pretty fun too.
That's a lot of fun, and he does run the show up there too. There's a lot to be said about that as well.
And there's also we didn't give it up. I mean, Ferris was not before he got there. I mean, they were. I mean, Matt said that they were, not necessarily the bottom of the GLIAC, but I mean, pretty dang close. And he's rebuilt them basically from scratch. And he's had assistant coaches come and go, and still, they're atop the GLIAC. And if you ever want to see one hell of a game, any Anchor Bone Classic, I mean, I would say probably better at Grand Valley. It's one hell of an environment, and it's a lot of fun. And you see how many people really do care about those two schools, and especially there's a lot of really proud Ferris alums.
You're spot on that the Anchor Bone Classic is definitely a great college football environment. And, there is something to be said about, he mentioned about how his dad, for a number of reasons, but he stayed in Corona. Maybe in a sense just because of the comfortable aspect, the peace of mind. He knew he was comfortable with his family and all that kind of stuff there at Corona. He could have probably had a bunch of other jobs elsewhere, kind of like Tony right now, could probably almost name his position at certain places. But the part of being comfortable at Ferris and successful, he's got his son now as an assistant that he can kind of groom. So, I feel like you probably get to a point there too where it's why would I go somewhere else where I'm pretty settled and comfortable here. But you know how head coaches are. I mean, you always want, like, the next challenge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do wonder if that'll happen at some point.
Well, there is one thing, though. He has been a head coach for a heck of a long time. And, when you're used to running your own show, that would be difficult to transition no matter how much money you were paid, for sure. All right, fellas, that was fun. And, again, we appreciate Tony taking the time out. But before we wrap up this program, we're going to go back to something we did back in episode 51, our top 3 Christmas songs, and our conversation along with that. And we'll be back with that right after this. Nelson House Funeral Home's #1 goal is to serve the families in our area. The Nelson House staff are proud to serve our local community with reliability, integrity, and compassion. Unique service representing unique lives, ensuring your loved ones receive the honor and celebration they deserve. Founded in 1880 and continuing the tradition today with chapels in Owasso, Chesaning, and New Lothrop. For more details, find them at nelson-house.com or call 989-723-5234.
Success Group Mortgage and Servicing is Shiawassee County's only licensed mortgage broker, lender, and servicer. That means you get exclusive products not found anywhere else. If you are looking to purchase a home or refinance a home in Florida, Hawaii, or Michigan, stop what you're doing and give Success Group Mortgage and Servicing a call. 989-720-4380. That's 989-720-4380.
Rivals Tap House and Grill is the area's go-to spot for the best in food and drink. Meet up with your friends and catch your favorite sporting events on over 20 high-def flat-screen TVs.
And our 120-inch projection screen.
Rivals can handle your large or small parties and is an awesome spot to put on your fundraising events. Weekly food and drink specials including gourmet burgers, wings, pizza, homemade soup, and salads. Rivals also stocks a large selection of craft and domestic brews. Rivals Tap House and Grill, the official gathering spot of 3 Point Podcast, located on the corner of Shiawassee and M21 in Corunna.